Hello and welcome to Cooking the Books with Heather. Today we have something different for you. We have another one of my recipes. So I will include all of the ingredients and their amounts as we go along, but I'm going to start by just telling you all of those ingredients and what the amounts are. So you'll have that. If I forget to say later, you'll know how much. Today we're going to be making white chicken chili. It is super creamy. It is cheesy. It is really decadent, very filling. It is not low calorie. It might be good for a keto diet. I'll have to do all my nutrition. Information will be below, and it will be based on the amounts of everything I'm using today. But you can play with this as much as you like, really, because I started with a different recipe and I've sort of simplified it, and this is how I do it now. So first off, I'm going to go in order of my recipe over here so I don't forget anything. We have 2 cans of navy beans, small white beans, whatever you like is fine, but usually use white beans. I will drain and rinse these before I add them in, but they'll go in much later. I also have some chopped green chilies, 2 approximately 4-ounce cans, 1 larger can if you can find it. I'm not going to drain or rinse these. They're going to go in exactly as is. I have, it's supposed to be like 1 large onion chopped. I have like a medium one and a smaller one. It's about 10 ounces of onion after chopping. I have a whole stick of unsalted butter, and we're going to use all of it. I have 1/4 cup of flour. You could probably leave this out if you're trying to do a whole keto thing, and it will just be a little bit less creamy. You would probably end up using less of that. But anyway, less of that, which is chicken broth. I poached chicken breasts, boneless, skinless chicken breasts in some broth. I use just water and a soup base that I keep on hand. This time, any kind of chicken broth you have is fine. I'm going to start with about 1 cup, but I end up using more than that. I just add it until it's the consistency that I like. I usually end up adding probably double that at least, but we'll see. This is about 4 cups. We'll see how much is left. We have 2 cups of half and half. Like I said, this is very creamy. It is not low calorie, but you know, we haven't made it yet this year, so we don't eat it all the time. Original recipe calls for Tabasco. As usual, I keep Frank's on hand, so that is what I will be using. We do have some spices, and because we're using some chili powder, that's 1.5 teaspoons of chili powder. It doesn't really end up white. It's kind of orange, but that's okay. We also have some cumin and some white pepper. You can use black pepper if you don't have white pepper. It'll be fine. So there's 1 teaspoon of cumin and 1/2 teaspoon of white pepper there. We're just going to put salt in to taste, about 1/2 teaspoon, but it depends on how salty everything else is. There's cheese and canned things, so there's other salt in here already. So this was about 1 pound of cooked chicken. You could use any sort of already cooked chicken you have, or you can cook some chicken. These were 2 huge chicken breasts that after everything is about 1 pound cooked. Chopped up bite size, however you want it is fine. You could use more if you're going for very meat heavy, or less. I don't care. Use what you like. I think the original recipe calls for probably more than this, but this will be plenty for my family. And then we have some Monterey Jack cheese that I have grated. It's supposed to be about 6 ounces. This is closer to 8. More cheese is fine for me. I don't care. And then a half of a cup of sour cream. That will go in near the end. So this is all of the ingredients that we are going to be using for this. You can garnish it with salsa or whatever you like. Some cilantro would be great if you have some, green onions. But really this is, so our regular chili, we usually add, you know, sour cream and cheese and all that. This already has all of that in there, but I think some green onion would be good, and some cilantro would be good just to be pretty, but I usually don't add anything on top of this because it's good as is. So what we're going to be doing now, so I have simplified the original recipe quite a lot. I'm going to melt the butter, all of the butter, in the pot that I'm going to cook it in. This is, I don't know, maybe six to 8 quarts worthy. It's not gonna, this is supposedly makes 4 to 6 servings. I think we usually end up making getting at least 8 out of it. So we'll see how much we get this time. But I'm going to melt this on sort of medium heat. And then I'm going to cook the onions until they are softened, almost translucent, pretty much almost done. Because this is not going to cook for a really, really long time because everything is already pretty much cooked. We're just sort of putting it together and making a sauce around it, and that is it. So we will be back and show you what goes on over at the stove as soon as those onions are done. Okay, my onions have been cooking for probably a little bit too long. I had to turn them down because we were doing something else. Got a little brown, but otherwise it'll be fine. So now I'm going to add my flour. This was about a 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. And I'm going to go ahead and add my spices in here as well. My dry spices, no salt yet, but we're going to basically cook this for, I don't know, 3 to 5 minutes, just to sort of make kind of a roux and get that raw flour taste out. So I've got it on medium low, like a 3 on my stove, which goes, up to 10. So I'm just gonna let this cook for about 3 minutes. And while that's happening, I'm gonna go and open my beans and rinse them, drain them and rinse them. So they'll be ready whenever I'm ready. And open my chilies so they're ready whenever I need them. That has been going on for about 3 minutes and seems fine to me. So now we're gonna add our liquid ingredients. So I'm going to add about a cup. I'm barely gonna measure it, honestly, because I know I'm gonna end up needing more. So I'm adding about 3/4 of a cup just there of that chicken broth. And just get that stirred in. And that will thicken up pretty quickly. And now we're gonna add the 1/2 and 1/2. Get that stirred in. If you need a whisk, if you feel like it's lumpy, you can whisk this. That's no big deal, but I don't usually need to. All right. I'm just gonna get all of our 1/2 and 1/2 in there. 2 whole cups. There we go. We're just going to simmer this for about 5 minutes, and that will be that. So sometimes if I really want more of a fresh chili, I will chop those up and cook them in with the onions, but the canned chilies are fine and easy. So this is something that I can make on a weeknight if necessary, if I want to. I ended up turning it up to medium because it just was not coming up to a boil or simmer fast enough for me. And it's just sort of, as you stir it, it goes back down. So it took about 5 minutes just to sort of come up to a simmer because we added cold half and half and cold chicken broth to it. So now it's simmering. And I'm going to turn the heat down if it boils too much, but it's definitely starting to thicken, and I'm going to cook it for about 5 minutes. It's been almost 5 minutes, and I think this has gotten pretty thick, and I'm going to start adding the rest of my ingredients. I'm going to add them a little bit at a time, just so it kind of let it come back up to temperature as I add things. The first thing I'm going to do is add my 2 cans of chopped chilies. These are pretty mild. They shouldn't really add much spice, honestly. I'm going to add in my Tabasco, or my Frank's at this point. It's supposed to be about a teaspoon. I'm not measuring it. That should be fine. We can add more later. You can add some to your own, which my husband will probably do after it's served. Ooh, I'm also going to add some salt here. I will taste it later to see if it needs more. We haven't added the cheese, which is salty, but my chicken also doesn't have any salt besides the little bit that was in the soup base that I added. So that's all mixed up. I'm going to add my chicken, and this was cold from the refrigerator, so I'm gonna let everything come back up to temperature before I add anything else. Now that the chicken is in it, will also let me know if I feel like I need to add more chicken broth, because now it's starting to get a lot of stuff in it. So this whole process should take about 20 minutes. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but we'll see. Because really, you don't need to cook any of these ingredients. They're all cooked. You're just trying to heat it up and make it sort of one thing at this point. We're starting to get some bubbling around the chicken, and now I'm going to add the beans. So I just drained these in my sieve and rinsed them until, they kind of stopped foaming. That's one of the things that happens with beans, is they get a little foamy when you start rinsing them. So rinse them until they stopped. I do want it a little juicier than this, a little more sauce, less just stuff. So I'm going to add a little over a half cup of chicken broth, which again is going to bring the temperature down a little bit. So that was about 1.25 cups total, probably. But I just really go by consistency. All right, so we are just about back up to a simmer, and kind of see the bubbles are there, but they're not quite breaking the surface yet. And if I let it go, I've been stirring it because I don't want it to burn on the bottom. This is more likely to burn on the bottom than other types of chili because there's a lot of dairy in it. So I'm going to go ahead and add the cheese. Add a little bit, stir, add a little bit, stir. Get it all mixed in, starting to melt. This is another time when you may decide you need a little more broth. So now that that's all stirred in, I'm going to leave it as is for now. I'm going to turn it back down to about a 3 on my stove, maybe a little bit lower. And I'm going to let this go for 10 minutes at this point. think it's good on salt. All right. It's been about 10 minutes. We're going to call this good. I can kind of feel like there's a little bit of bubbling going on down at the bottom. It's fine. The cheese is all melted, and that's really all we needed to happen. The last thing we have to do is add our 1/2 cup of sour cream, stir it in, and then it is ready to serve. There we go. That is it. I'm going to leave mine on low just to keep it warm for us to eat. I think I'm happy with that texture. I'm not going to add any more chicken broth. Yeah. We'll let you know in just a minute what we think. On this episode of Cooking the Books with Heather, you watched me make my own recipe for white chicken chili. This is a really creamy, cheesy, I usually make it kind of thick, and it's not exactly white. It's a little on the orange side because it does have some spices in it that help to color it. And it's not very spicy as is. You can make it as thick or as thin as you want. You can add extra chicken broth to thin it out if you don't like it very thick. I think I served it sort of medium thick this time, not too thick. It makes enough, this recipe, the way I made it, makes enough for probably 6 to 8 people. We ended up with a little bit left over, enough for a couple of lunches, but we didn't really serve it with anything else. It'd be great with cornbread or chips or anything that you normally would serve with your chili. I really like, especially since it's creamy, I really like some green onion on it. I don't think I had any at this point. Maybe I did. I forget. You'll see in the pictures if I did. But yeah, we really love it. We make it at least once a year. If we're lucky, we have leftovers enough to freeze some and then have it for lunches at another point. But this was the first time we made it this year, and now it is spring, so we probably won't be making it again until the fall. But it's a really quick chili. You can make it on a weeknight, which is great. If you have your chicken already cooked, it's even better. And yeah, it's a crowd pleaser, I think. Everybody in my family enjoys it, and I hope you guys enjoy it as well. I will include a link to the full recipe in the description below. So if you want that, go ahead and click it, and you can print it out or save it however you like. Yeah, if you enjoyed watching me make this, please give me a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share the video with your friends, and let me know what you think. Come back and watch me make something else next week.